apple roll with perfect yeast pastry dough, coming to you from a very special place with a special ingredients, yes, made with love always. I have a little helper today. Do you see her? Welcome to this Cooking with Love channel and welcome to my grandbaby's kitchen. Yes, she was full of help here. Can you see it? I love watching her little hands messing around with the dough. Reminds me of my good old days when I was growing up. And look at her, she was following every step, and the final results, yes, they were totally priceless. Not only with the face of my grandbaby, but with the product that even grown-ups enjoy it. Oh yes, let me tell you. So let's cook. We have our ingredients, and like I said, I come to you visiting my grandbabies, and we are cooking a recipe that has been around in my family. I don't even know for how long, but I certainly grew up on it. My grandma would make it, my mom would make it, and of course you can make it so many different ways. Yes, of course. I'm making them this time with an apple filling. But you can make a different type of fillings, and yes, you can control the amount of butter you want, the amount of sugar you want, how many eggs you would like to use, how rich you want to make this. And let me tell you, yes, of course, it will be delicious no matter how. And I have seen, I know you maybe have seen it too. I have eaten it too, of course. But you can make this recipe not only with apples that we are using today, but poppy seeds are very popular out there, as well as a cheese filling. So if you are looking for the other filling for this recipe, let me know, we'll cook it up. And like I said, this one is made with apples. I really enjoy that one, and again, you can control the amount of sugar in that one. It is so full of flavor with all that cinnamon and vanilla, and I will walk you step by step. We will make our home filling. I am using my bread machine to make the dough. It does help to make it nice and easy. And don't forget to check us out on our Small Home Off-Grid Prepping website, full of information from my husband, from his channel as well. So if you are looking maybe for solar panel or any kind of gadgets for off-grid living ideas, yes, check us out. We even have some stores out there available, so go for it. Here we have only about a couple pounds of apples. You can use more. I would recommend the Granny Smith or maybe combination of both, like I did it here. And I love to make a toy out of the peeling of an apple because I was always impressed how my mom did it, and I thought I would never be able to do it. So yes, we are peeling the apples, and we will be shredding those as well on just a regular box shredder with the thick setting. And I just had a lot of fun with peeling the apples for my grandbaby, because you can make a toy really out of anything. And this is something that they can still munch on because yes, the skin has so many vitamins. For cooking, however, you do want to peel those. And no, you don't have to make it as fancy. Just make sure that the skin is off. That's the whole idea of it. Yes, just a regular box shredder. On that kind of setting, that's what we are working here with. And yes, the more apples, it will make it a little bit probably better, but even the 2 pounds does a job. I probably had maybe right in the middle somewhere there when I weighed them. So just shred the apples, but when you are shredding apples on that kind of grinder here on the shredder, you will find that apples are quite full of liquid. After shredding all of the apples, we'll just have to squeeze out some of the juice that apples produce here. And don't worry about that, we'll do that once all your apples are done. And I know I had probably a little bit too much fun with peeling apples here and playing around with them. But like I said, it's something that you can let your kids hopefully munch on, or maybe you can reuse it some other way. All that leftover of the peeled apple here, I hope. Let me know how you reuse them. I think that would be something to munch on. So anyway, when our apples are done and shredded, like I said, when you squeeze them even slightly, you will notice there is some liquid. If you want to, you can dice them. That will prevent releasing all that liquid. I'm making this the way my mom always made, and you see you have that apple juice right here. So save it and enjoy it. Either squeeze them out with some kind of kitchen utensil. My mom normally just did it by hand, and you don't want to overdo it, but you do want to have them not as wet. You see, this is our separated juice right there. So set that aside and figure out what to do with that too. How about that? A whole new recipe. So here are our apples, and we are using a good pan here, something probably thicker. I would recommend it. And we are adding 2 tablespoons of butter. You just want to make sure that that butter is kind of on the bottom, like I'm showing you here. You want that butter to melt, and we are doing this on the low setting. You don't want to burn these apples. You want to be on a standby because that's something that will require a little bit of your attention. So that butter on the bottom will help, and like I said, we are using a low setting. We will be covering that and simmering it for 10, 15, 20 minutes. It really depends on your stove, depends how high you will be cooking this. You are just trying to make the apples a little bit soft, something that they are not as, vivid, almost not necessarily a total paste, but something that is way softer to work with. And yes, we are adding additional ingredients here. We will be adding, of course, cinnamon, and here I go again, probably somebody might say, but I like to use a nutmeg in here as well. So you see our apples are starting to brown. We have some steam going here. So yes, here comes a powdered sugar. You can add 1 or 2 tablespoons. Depends on how many apples you are cooking, and it depends how much sugar you want to have here. They don't have to really be that sweet, I'm telling you. So I used a half a nutmeg here. You don't have to use a nutmeg if you don't have one. If you don't like it, I like it. That's how I make it. And again, about a 1 or 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 1 or 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Again, if you have 3 pounds of apples, you will be definitely going for the number 2 here. And just stir and mix it up, all of it together nicely. Once you have everything in there, and let it cook a little bit more. I actually added something additional here. I squeezed a whole lemon. I think lemon, it's always a nice boost of a flavor in here as well. So you see our apples are cooking, and when they are covered, they will cook a little bit better, and all that moisture is being kept, all that steam, and it helps to cook. When you are grinding the nutmeg, I would recommend to use a fresh one. You just need a fine grater to do that on, something like that. And out of that one, I used about a half of it. If you want to go for a little bit more because you have a little bit more apples, the 3/4 probably will work too. So you see our all spices smelling so good are in. We're adding some vanilla, like I said, and just mix it all together and let it all sit. And eventually, when all that is mixed in, just cover it and let it be when you have all those ingredients added to it. And let me tell you something, this is so delicious on crepes, on Polish naleśniki, I would call it. Or maybe you want to make some kind of biscuits instead of what I'm making. That's another option. It's a little bit of more work. Yes, so this is truly made with love, I call it. It is so yummy. You can just put it on bread. You can put it on some kind of biscuit. You can roll it even in a croissant or whatever idea you come up with. So it is really up to you. And you see, this is about what I had left of my nutmeg. By the time I was done with it, I'm just showing you that for the reference. And let those apples cool off. They just need to rest. You can make them while you're making the dough, while the dough is making. You can make them even the day before. I only added 2 eggs to the dough. You can add 3, but then you're gonna have to adjust maybe the butter or the liquid that you are adding here if you're adding more eggs. 2 eggs, it's plenty. If you want, you can even use 1. And then again, add a little bit of probably liquid most likely. So they need to be slightly beaten, nothing, you know, you don't need to dig out all your blenders and stuff like that by hand, even with fork. And we also have our yeast ready here. Your milk needs to be slightly preheated. Don't make it too hot. We are using 2/3 of a cup of warm milk and 2 teaspoons of yeast and 1 teaspoon of granulated regular white sugar. That helps the yeast go to work. So just mix in slightly that the yeast are in it and let that be for 10 minutes or something like that, and set it aside while we're getting all the rest of our ingredients. And you will see they will nicely bubble up. Once you see all those bubbles on top of the milk, the yeast is activated and it's doing its work that we needed here, that's for sure. And again, don't make that milk too hot. And you see how nice we have these little bubbles popping already. So I'm using here again the bread machine. Yes, you can use food processor on the dough setting. You can use a mixer, and I just love my bread machine. I know it makes things so much easier because everything gets preheated, everything grows in the right temperature. In the air conditioning, that it's a little bit hard to accomplish. So yes, I'm adding 2 eggs with 6 tablespoons of butter that it's melted. Make sure it's not hot because it will cook your eggs. It will lump up your flour. So it is melted, but it is cooled. So that's another tip to make sure out there. And I'm just piling up all my ingredients to my bread machine because that's what's nice about it. That's all you do with it, and the machine does all the work for you. So we are adding, of course, sugar here, our remaining. I used a total here about 3 tablespoons of sugar. I added a little bit to the yeast, so this is my remainder. And I use about 3.5 cups of flour. It really depends again on the flour. This really varies when you're adding all your ingredients. So I'm trying to show you what I did. Kind of watch your dough when it's making. You can always add a little bit more flour if it's too loose. And of course you can add a little bit more milk if it's getting to be too hard, because you want the dough to be nice and soft, but something of course that you want to be able to work with. It's a little bit maybe on the softer side than when you are making noodles. I don't know if that helps you, if you are a noodle maker or not. And you see it takes about 1.5 hours in my dough machine to make the dough from the beginning up to a rising time in it, and it comes up and it's totally, you'll see it when I show you again. But you see the dough, it's quite soft, but it comes off from your fingers. It's not sticking anymore, and the machine goes through a couple different cycles and keeps mixing it all together for you. And I just love that part. I remember my grandmother doing it. Sometimes I was stuck with mixing things by hand, and that can get you tired. That dough does require a little bit of mixing. So again, if you are using another tool, go for it. And you see it's already in the process of rising slowly. We 30 minutes and then goes 20 minutes, and you see it's really going up and up quite fast. By the time the clock goes off, it is all the way to the top of the glass. And here is your beautiful risen dough. And it is really simple to make it when you have this bread machine. I feel like a commercial. And I hope you have one, or if you have something else that works very well for you too. And we are ready to get going on it. You need a little bit of extra more flour for dusting to work the dough. I have a special board that my husband made me, and I love it because that way I know it's always sanitary. I always clean it with some just vinegar on top of it to make sure it's all nice and clean after each use. And you see how soft that dough is, but again, it is not sticky. So we will be rolling it out, and you want to dust your dough a little bit and your pan and wherever the counter that you are working on. And when you are flipping it back and forth, you will be adding probably a little bit of flour. You don't want to overdo it. We also prepared our baking dish that you are using. I just did a plain dish like this, the pan, and with some parchment paper that was dusted with flour. We are rolling the dough to rectangle shape, about-ish, give or take. It doesn't have to be perfect. And you see, again, I don't have a lot of flour, but my dough comes off from the board easily. It is not stuck. That is very important. You also will need additional egg, or at least egg white. If you are short on eggs, you can add the yolk to the dough and just use the egg white and beat that slightly for additional egg wash on the top. So you have that ready. And we will be adding our apples into our dough that will be rolling. Of course, that's the effect we are looking for. So made all that goodies with love, and we are spreading them down on our unrolled dough. That is about somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thickish, I want to say. And you see, one edge I have apples going all the way to the end, and one I reserved a good amount. You don't have to reserve that much. You can spread out a little bit more. This is just to assure that everything gets sealed inside very well. So just roll it about so, depends on how wide you want to make this. And this is where egg white comes in, or the egg wash you will be using to seal the edges. You can also use it at the edges at the end, on the right and the left I'm referring to. I really don't, mine never comes apart. The dough is soft enough that it glues itself very well because you also tuck it in under. I'll show you in the next one as well. I normally just do it here, but if you want to do both ends as well, go for it. Like I said, I have never had this thing come apart. So what you do, you just press the ends slightly together and roll it under. And later just slightly reshape it, that end, so it's more even with the rest of our apple roll that we are making here, and it doesn't have a huge lump on each end. You see it like that. And now we are transferring it, all of it, to our baking pan, and it will be ready to go in the oven once it rises again. Yeah, I know we are not ready, but it's worth all that waiting time. You can make it the day before and even reheat it, it's still good. So once it's all rolled up, I'm putting an egg wash again, and I did cover this with saran wrap. And what I did, I actually reheated the oven slightly, but very slightly, just to keep it warm, because you want to still have this thing rising on us. It still needs to double its size pretty much. So find wherever you have it warm. Sometimes when you have a microwave that it's above your stove and you are cooking something beneath on your stove, it helps for this thing to rise too. Somehow it warms up that microwave a little bit too. So find a place where this thing is nice and safe to grow. You see my little helper here? We put it in the slightly preheated oven. But yes, you are baking that on the 350, 177 Celsius, until it is nice and golden brown, about that 40-45 minutes. And you're looking for that milk chocolate color maybe, or something like that. And then it has to cool off. I know, you see, hard work. I love that edge, how it comes out. You can tuck that edge completely under if you wanted to, but I think it does a little bit of character to the whole baking, and I always liked it. And guess what? Yes, you can make it even with some kind of icing. You can dust it with some powdered sugar if you wanted to. We never did. It was very unnecessary. This was so easy, grab it and go. This was so easy to have it the next day. Like I said, it was still delicious. And I don't think that additional sugar is necessary, especially if you are serving this to kids. I know many parents are so concerned, but let me tell you, a lot of store-bought things, they have more sugar than all this thing. And there comes my daughter making the cut, and you will see all those apples inside, and it is so soft. I don't know if you can see it, but it's very soft to the touch. It is so delicious even to use it with butter. Just another idea. And again, if you are looking for a different filling, that dough can be reused so many different ways. You can just add some raisins and bake it. You can do a cheese filling from the cream cheese. You can do the poppy seed, like I said. It is truly delicious. And the end satisfaction that you made something like that, you can't mess it up. I'm telling you, it was really something to watch my grandbaby's face and enjoy something that has been passed on for generations. Thank you for watching. We will see you the next time.